isn't the right thing to do.
You're listening to John Fane on 774 ABC Melbourne and on digital.
What happened with you and Peter?
Well, look, John, after 35 years of being Peter's best friend, ally and supporter, even I've had enough. Even I'm at my wit's end with Peter.
Great day.
For 5 years, he's been like a bear with a migraine headache, attacking everyone and sundry. So people have just had enough of all this criticism.
People being...
Well, people in the Liberal Party. People in the... I mean, we're sick of him attacking John Howard. Everywhere he goes, he says, no, Howard's no good. You know, he refuses to appear anywhere with John Howard. Now, Howard was a great Prime Minister, right? He was a great... We could never get the numbers against John Howard because Howard was too good, too popular, too great. You know, he doesn't like Hewson, he doesn't like Turnbull. He's never been all that friendly with my former father-in-law, the great Andrew Peacock. He doesn't like John Howard. He doesn't like Alexander Downer. He's been publicly critical of Tony Abbott, calling him a DLP stooge and an economic illiterate. He is not an economic illiterate, he's a Rhodes Scholar, for God's sake. One of the reasons I fell out years ago, Malcolm Turnbull rang me and others and said, I'm new leader, I don't know many people in Victoria, would you be a sounding board? I said, Malcolm, of course I would be. Well, when I told Peter this, he said, no, he didn't like that, why are you helping Turnbull? Why does John Howard say nice things about you, Michael, in his book? I said, well, because I used to be friendly with John Howard, Peter. Lunch with Peter is an agony, it's a nightmare. You sit there and listen to him unload on Howard. He's not gracious about John.
He's denied having had this meeting with you, or at this meeting having said he wants to go back into federal politics.
I've read that. I don't drink, and I'm not suggesting he drank too much at that lunch, but I've got a very clear focus. I know what happened. I know the date. I know where it was. It was in Melbourne. It was in late October. I've got 1,000 Peter Costello confidences, which I've never broken, and wouldn't. But on this occasion, I'm at my wit's end with him, John. Me, this is the Kroger of the Kroger-Costello faction. When I'm at my wit's end with him, that should tell you something. No, I don't want to have lunch with Peter anymore. I don't want to deal with him anymore. I've been apologising for him and defending him for 35 years, and it's time for him to bury the hatchet with all these people.
Maybe my memory's failing me, but I can't remember a more astonishing political interview than that one. Now, Nikki Savva, you worked for Peter Costello for many years. The fact that Michael Kroger no longer wants to have lunch with Peter Costello, does that matter?
Yeah, I think it does matter. I mean, they were friends for 35 years and they had a very close friendship, and it was a very productive relationship in terms of what it delivered for Liberal Party politics. And I think the fact that it's ended in such a public way, in such an acrimonious way, is a tragedy. On a personal level, on a political level, I've got to say it's like a soap opera. You can't separate that. It's
can't look away.
It was riveting, absolutely transfixing and horrible at the same time. So I think it's a shame on all sorts of levels. Yeah.
Why did he suddenly decide, do you think, to go public and unload in the way that he did? Well, clearly frustrated, and he's just found having lunch with Peter Costello an agony and a nightmare. But why do you think he...
He was probably also having to pay all the time, but apart from that... that's mean. It's not like me at all.
No. So why? Why do you think he did
why? Well, I think the whole thing was triggered by what happened with the pre-selection for the Senate ticket, where his former wife was dumped down to the third spot. I think he kind of accepted that, but then when there was a move earlier last week to remove her as the party whip, that was kind of like a last straw for him, and he just went troppo.
Now, it matters, doesn't it, in terms of coalition politics?
Well, it would matter more if Peter Costello was planning to try to get back into federal politics. I mean, that would be truly bad news for Tony Abbott. The good news for the federal Liberal Party is that Peter Costello is saying, no, that's not true. That's a figment, he says, a complete figment of Michael Kroger's imagination. But having such bad blood in the Liberal Party in the Victorian division is clearly not a good thing. When there's that much animosity, it tends to bubble over in all sorts of little things, like the Senate whip's position, all kinds of places. Now the Karangamite pre-selection. So, that's not a good look for a coalition that's close to, that's ahead in the polls, that sees itself as close to taking government, and that wants to portray absolute unity. I mean, and the other thing, of course, is Michael Kroger's said now very publicly that Peter Costello thinks that Tony Abbott's an economic illiterate. Now, Michael Kroger said he doesn't think that, but he kept saying again and again that that's what Peter Costello thinks. That's not a good message for the Liberal Party either. But, take-home message, it's a hell of a way to tell a bloke you don't want to have lunch with him anymore.
And now the division in the Liberal Party in Victoria, I suppose people will take sides. There'll be Kroger's people and there'll be Costello's people.
I think I know where the majority lies on this. I don't think Michael really has all that many numbers or all that much influence anymore. So I think there'll be, ripples here and there, but he doesn't have the numbers to do anything. Mind you, look, even if Costello wanted to come back, which he couldn't, Kroger couldn't even help him, even if he wanted to, and he certainly doesn't want to. And the whole thing was just, I think, an absolute fantasy. I mean, I don't know what was said at the lunch. I wasn't there, but it sounded to me like two old bulls out in the pasture, reliving old glories, maybe wishing they could recreate them. And who knows who said
Michael Kroger himself was saying that he doesn't have much influence anymore, and I suppose one of the things that's interesting about it is, well, how much influence does Peter Costello really have anymore? What else is going to happen in the party? Who's going to try to replace them?
But all those young people have moved well away from that. I mean, they've got their own careers, their own ambitions, and they do not depend on Peter Costello or Michael Kroger to further them.
But it seems to me if there is a division in Victoria at all, it's divided now down on those who used to work for Peter Costello and those who used to work for Alexander Downer, even though Downer's from South Australia, but people like Greg Hunt and Josh Frydenberg on one side, and then you've got all those Costello staffers on the other side, Mitch Fifield and the rest of them.
Yeah, but they intermingle. There's a lot of intermingling, like Kelly O'Dwyer and Josh Frydenberg have joint fundraising ventures. It's not like, there is that kind of bitter division, or there is rivalry between them, obviously, because they're all terribly ambitious people. But I don't think, it's going to spill over into the federal arena all that much.
Well, it was certainly a big deal at the time. Let's have a listen to Peter Reith here, and I think the only way to describe this is Peter Reith having a Daryl Mallam moment.
I just think this whole story is a complete beat-up. And to be honest with you, it also reflects a failure or a misunderstanding about what's happened in Victoria. Two blokes have lunch, apparently, when it was discussed what might happen to Peter in the future, and this apparently is supposed to be a big story. I mean, honestly, what a joke. I mean, it's just complete nonsense from start to finish.
These politicians have got to stop bagging ABC stories. Sometimes they're right.